Freaky is a Blumhouse-produced slasher film starring Vince Vaughn. The film follows a slasher and a teenage geek whose consciousnesses, is that plural? I don't even know. Well, they become swapped after the discovery of an ancient dagger. Guys, welcome back to Garage Slasher-thon, where every day for the month of October, we revisit a slasher movie. We're getting close to Halloween. Happy spooky season, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about a movie called Freaky, and the interesting thing about this movie is, I didn't even know this movie existed. The way I discovered this movie was a month ago. I was talking to a friend, and we're kind of just like coming up with fake movie plots. And I was like, oh, they're going to create a cinematic universe and call it Freaky Friday the 13th. I don't even know how I came up with the idea. But obviously someone came up with that idea first. Because the guy said, you know that movie already exists, huh? And I was like, what? Really? And yeah, that's probably the conversation they had when they were writing the script to this movie. They're like, hey, let's make Freaky Friday the 13th. And it's kind of a dumb way to come up with a movie, but nonetheless, it's Blumhouse. They greenlight anything. I get it. So they went ahead and made it. And there's a bunch of slasher movies I could have picked from Blumhouse. They have a Happy Death Day and this movie. And I feel like around this period, there was a bunch of slasher movies that are kind of like tongue-in-cheek riffs on other movies, like Happy Death Day is Groundhog Day, and this is Freaky Friday. And yeah, I felt like I had no interest in this movie. I'm just gonna do one Blumhouse movie, get it out of the way, fuck it. And surprisingly enough, I went in with low expectations. It was okay. Not a tremendous movie. Not great. It's not one of the best slasher movies we've reviewed here on this marathon. It does alright, I would say. I kind of forgot about it immediately after watching it. One thing for sure is that it has like one of the worst Universal logos. You know how sometimes you'll watch a movie, like the one I always go to is the Simpsons movie, where they have the 20th Century Fox logo and there's a So sometimes movies will alter the opening logo, and they do it for this movie. I thought my TV was broken. Not a good prank, bro. Not a good prank. Anyway, so, like I said, it's a good movie. It had a lot going for it. I feel like it loses steam halfway through the movie once the gimmick becomes a bit tired. The movie opens with this, like, fantastic, classic slasher scene where it's a bunch of kids having sex, smoking weed, doing drugs, and a slasher comes around. And it was really cliched, very tongue-in-cheek, but it was effective at what it did ultimately. One thing that really stood out to me in that opening is the score, which really had like this kind of Bernard Herrmann kind of feel. And I thought they were going to go with that, and I was kind of in with it because he's actually my favorite film composer. But it didn't go in that direction. I feel like it kind of dropped that kind of style. Maybe that opening was trying to be a bit more cliched, which is why they went with the Bernard Herrmann score. But I wish they kept it consistent throughout because it was actually a pretty good score. And then like when the inciting incident first happens, it's pretty fun. It's Freaky Friday. It's the change up. We've seen this kind of plot being done millions of times before. I think the new Marvel movie is going to do that kind of switcheroo plot as well, which, you know, when Marvel is doing it now, it means it's really been run to the ground. Not that it works more in this movie, but it's fun to watch. There's a reason why they tell this story a dozen of times, is because it's a fun story to tell. And especially in this kind of situation where it's like the two complete opposites. One's a serial killer and the other one is like a teenage girl. And it's really fun to just watch Vince Vaughn like fuck around as a teenage girl. Yeah, that's kind of what I liked about it, was that kind of stark contrast between the two characters. Usually there's a bit of contrast, like you watch Freaky Friday, one's the mom and one's the daughter. This one is like they take it to the two extremes. I will say I wish that the slasher was a bit more Like, I liked it when Vince Vaughn was the girl, because it's fun to see a giant brooding man act like a teenage girl. But I felt like the girl's performance as Vince Vaughn's character wasn't as strong, and I think the way to correct that, nothing to do with the actress really, it's just maybe if the serial killer was given a bit more development prior to the switcheroo. Maybe if he was a bit more of a lumbering idiot, maybe something along the lines of a Leatherface, maybe that would have been more interesting, more than just stoic Anthony Perkins kind of serial killer. It's just the performance. Like, a lot of the comedy came from Vince Vaughn and not a lot of it came from the girl. So it's good for a Blumhouse movie. It has a decent score. It works. It's coherent. It's well structured. Whenever it comes to reviewing movies from like 2015 beyond, my standard becomes increasingly low. Because in the 70s, like, I could just pick any slasher movie from the 70s. Like, that's kind of what I did in this marathon. I picked, like, Alice, Sweet Alice. I've never heard of that movie before, but I watched it and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. That was unique. That was something I didn't see before. And nowadays, movies are just, like, rehash. So it's like, okay, it's rehash, whatever. It's well-structured, it's coherent, it has its flaws, but it works. One thing is that, despite Vince Vaughn really being fun in this movie, the shtick does get old after a while. This is a 1 hour 45 minute movie, and it goes on 15 minutes too long, and I would have just cut the ending out. There's kind of like this fake out at the end, which I feel like was not deserved. It doesn't really add anything to either genre it's paying tribute to. It doesn't really do anything with the switcheroo genre, and it doesn't even do anything for the slasher genre, in my opinion anyway. It's just putting two things together, and it's like, huh, that worked. It's a very simple, by-the-books, non-risky movie. And that means I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it that much either. It's just pretty middle of the road. I did like the high school kind of vibes in this movie, because they actually went for the Zoomer dialogue, which I appreciated. They talk about stuff like toxic white males, and usually that shit is kind of cringy, but it works in this movie because it's a 2017 movie. It's kids in high school. It kind of fits. And the movie does poke fun at some of the shit these people say, too. Also, I didn't know that Ferris Bueller's friend was in this movie. And he plays a dick teacher. The one who's also in Succession. So, yeah. The gay friend was pretty fun, too. He was, like, kind of like this, like, slay bitch. But he was also saying, like, the dumbest shit ever. Which was funny. Middle of the road movie. It's good for Blumhouse. It's good for the time period it came out. Like, if it came out that year, I probably would have liked it. And I'd be like, oh, that was one of the better movies of that year. But I think it's because I'm getting near the end of this marathon. I'm like, okay, I need to see something new. Okay, that wasn't quite it. A movie like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, though, that you can pop in the DVD player at any time and enjoy it. Have a couple of brews with your buddies. Freaky is not that. It does its job. It's serviceable. It's McDonald's to me. It's just, you know what you're gonna get, and you get it, and you should be happy. Eat the slop. Am I going too hard on this movie? I think I am. Anyway, that's all I think about this movie. Did you guys like it? Comment below, let me know, and I'll see you guys around. Take care.
Look, I know I look like the butcher, but it's Millie.
He's crazy.
Okay, Booker, can you look at me, please?
Booker!
Dry up, bitch.
Booker, help! Booker!
Will you shut up?
Booker!